Hey, so welcome back to another game analysis. So I am playing with the white pieces here. My opponent, RW, I'm just gonna call him R. My opponent R is playing with the black pieces. Now, this quickly became, as you can see, it only lasted 17 moves before my opponent ultimately resigned. I figured I would just, go over this game and go over how not to how not to play chess. So this is a game how to keep your king safe and ultimately make sensible moves. Now, it's this is the English opening. I already covered this. Just a flank pawn trying to take the center through this way, putting the knight here, and this is the first inaccuracy of the game. Now I meant to put the knight here, but instead I was messing around with my mouse, and I accidentally mouse slipped. So I did ask for a take back. My opponent declined, which is okay. I mean, he didn't have to take back. Let me take back. But so yeah, I was forced to play this weird variation where my f pawn is too advanced, and I was only able to get away with it because the queen and the bishop are not activated yet. So if he opened up with this and had his bishop here and the queen activated beforehand, then it would have been a little bit more disastrous. But yeah, so he took here, so I was forced to play like some sort of open reverse Sicilian. Yeah, so this is an accuracy. I wanted to. My reason for this, actually, I think these two are my only inaccuracies of the game. Nope, where's one more? Okay. Um, my reasoning behind this was that I want to connect my pawns, but I guess I could have just taken and then play this. And yeah, so my goal of this was to make sure the queen could not get into a position where it can attack me. So as you can see, this was a classical. As per usual, I barely use any of my time. So this is totally out of theory. Everything about this game is out of theory. F6 should not, or F3 should not ever be played in the English. If you're playing F6 while you're playing the English, there's something wrong with you. I really wanted to capture this way when the knight, after he took the knight. He needed to keep the knight into the game because what he did is, let's count how many moves the knight made. So yeah, the knight already moved him once in the opening. He took again. I forced him by playing this move. I forced him to play another knight move. But this is actually an accuracy because I could have just took. But he takes, and I did end up having to capture with the d pawn. And then I might be wondering, Kevin, you should take with the b pawn instead because you can go here and then and after you take, it'll say black does something like here and then pinning, and then they'll try to take the center, or maybe even yeah. So we'll try to take the center, and then after taking, then you can play here. Then maybe your d pawn. Yes, but this position is very uncomfortable. Black has a very powerful bishop, and they're not obligated to trade it off. So this bishop will become a pain to deal with in the long run. Because even if I say that he castled, even if I do end up trading, it is if I do end up trading, this is still a fundamental weakness. And we'll say that, you know what, he doesn't take. Yeah, he decides to actually give a check. And now we have to go here. And now he just preys on my weaknesses even further. And I have to castle to protect it. He can say, okay, well, I back up. And now this position, while white has several pawns that they deal with, if we flip the board, this is very comfortable. Black can put this bishop onto h3 and start just bulldozing this poor pawn. White's weakness is going to be these two pawns here. They'll need to protect them, and without a light square bishop, this is going to get messy. The opponent has both of the bishop. They have the bishop pairs that can just raid and snipe everything along this file. And then soon the rooks will get into the game through E and then D, and then potentially knight lift or rook lifting over them over here to support the bishop on here or even here. So it's just, this is going to be it's a very messy game. Very positional, but very messy. So I decided I was not going to go worry about that. I'll take with this. He takes with the king, or he takes with the queen. Now, computer shows this as a good move. I don't really necessarily agree with this move. Yes, you get rid of the queen, get rid of the queens, and force the castle, then my opponent castles. Alright, I'm not even gonna, I'll go into that a little bit, but, got ahead of myself. But sure, you have the bishop here, but the bishop is unsupported. You haven't developed any of your pieces yet. And sure, white has many of these, because obviously you're not, white has many of these squares. You obviously cannot develop the bishop to any of here because it can get taken by any of these pawns. Here is probably second, here's probably going to be the best option. Here, I would not agree with. I do not agree with this one. Because if that happens, then black is now going to be forced to deal with these double pawns. So the bishop will have to drop back to here to protect this pawn chain. And after here, honestly, yeah, white's in a good position, despite not having any castling rights, because the file is locked down. And I can very easily, as white, escape through over here and manually castle, and I have the chance. So that is why, genuinely, when you do not have any protection right here, that you generally should not put the bishop where it can only be taken by a pawn when there's a, okay, let me explain that better. That's why genuinely you should not put a bishop or a piece on a square where it can only be defended by a pawn, and if the opponent can capture and force you to have double pawns. That's just, yeah. So don't put it here and force the isolated pawns. Genuinely something you should avoid. So I put here to pin the pawn to the king, so this pawn cannot go f5 and brick open my position, because obviously if I take f5, they can take with the bishop, and they have a strong diagonal. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to develop this way, because my plan is, let's just go over here. And I did actually tow with the idea, instead of going here, just going here. And then putting the bishop here, and then going here. But I ultimately decided that bishop development was more important than the king right now, because the king cannot get attacked. Well, king can get checked, but it doesn't matter. He did not opt for the check, which I thought that was better. I thought about this. Okay, it's good. But this is better. Probably just a developing move. But yeah. So he decides to go here because he wants to push the pawn down. Yeah, I should have gone to c2 connecting the rooks. I do agree with that. I want to play aggressive here and force my opponent to start doing something. But yeah, I did agree with this. This is one of the things about black's plan, or black's position, is that when you're in this position and you have this solid pawn structure and this solid pawn structure, you need to go here. Or not here. You need to go here to pawn break it. Opponent can't take, and if they take, well, that's the best move, really. Oh, wow. So yeah, this is best move. And yeah, now black or white has to escape over here. And then you just develop normally. I'll say that I'm just going to go here instead. Just protecting, and then just going to chase it even further. Offer a trade. Aha. Got it. Okay. Just want to see our variation more went. But yeah. So this would have been a really even game. Both sides have developed. Both sides. White is slightly better due to the pawns and the quality of the pieces. Putting pressure on here and here. So going back to actually what happened. So he does give a check, which I was well prepared for. I had a choice here. I could have gone to e2, which was originally my plan, or I can go c2. I decided to go c2, which is the best move, because now my rooks are connected, and not only that, but the king, even though the king is still acting in the defense of the d2 square. The d2 square is important here, because if rook goes to the second rank of, if a rook goes into the second rank of either you or your opponent, like if my rook went here or his rook goes here, it's very, very dicey. Because the pawns are very vulnerable here. Well, not really my pawns, but if somehow my rook got here, this would be very vulnerable. Because he'll have to play defense through this way or this way, neither of which is optimal. This is isolated pawns. This is just passive. So he decides to connect the pawns as well. A very, very poor decision. I do not believe that this is in any shape or form a good move. Now, yes, it's being attacked by the bishop, but he should have moved his king over and just accept the fact that he needs these 3 pawns, because pushing it only gives my bishop more squares to look at. And now the king has no escape squares. He can't move anywhere. And remember, and look at his pieces. He doesn't have the time to develop his pieces yet to get out of it and then to trade the rook. So naturally what I do, I exploit it. I exploit it by putting my rook, challenging his, and saying, hey, if you want to trade, let's do it. Because ultimately, you will have to be the one to play this move, and even so, it's just mate in 2. So he plays that move to get out of check. It's mate in 2. Mate. So he can't play that. If he plays this, now I just pinned his rook to the, or knight to the rook, and I have the bishop pair. So that is the reason why he could not trade there. Although he should have just knight to c6 was the best move here, because it defends, and if I attack, oops, not that move, this move, he can just go right back. Really, that's a mistake. Where's best move? Best move's here. Aha, and then now he gets time. Okay. But yeah, so that's the reason why we could not trade there. He instead goes to f8. Poor decision, once again. This does absolutely nothing. It's absolutely nothing other than give me a rook. Now, I already have control over these. I have control over this, and I have control over these squares. Now, with the bishop coming here, he will have only 1 square to go, and that's here, which can get attacked by the bishop, which is exactly what happens. So, that's exactly what happens. I know he's going to play the bishop here, which I actually thought was a good move, but it's an inaccuracy. Why? Let's find out. Oh, I see. Okay. Really? What about this move? Oh, tricky. Very, very tricky. Really? Just giving up a full rook? Oh, pinned. Okay. That's why. Sorry, I get sidetracked. But yeah. So, knight there. Knight to d7 was better because they're attacking a vulnerable piece. And again, you need time. When one of your pieces is under attack like this, you either need to buy yourself time or defend it. Defend it, move it, or buy time. Because right now, black doesn't have any time. They're very much under threat. White has no threats at all to the king. No one, despite them not being castle, king safety is important. We define king safety by whose king has the most, whose king is being attacked, whose king is completely safe. Do you see any pieces that can get to the king at the moment? Absolutely nothing. No piece can get to the king. The bishop cannot go here. The knight has no idea to attack. Everything is covered, no matter where they move. All these squares are fully covered. The rook cannot get to the king. This rook has total file dominance. So you need to buy yourself time. After He ends up taking the bishop. I pin the bishop to the king. The king cannot move. And he would be checkmated if he moves. We'll say that he moves the knight. Knight loses the rook. He can't move the bishop because it's pinned. This is the only move. That or maybe even g6. I think g6 is checkmate though. Really, it's not checkmate? Oh, then you slide for here. And then you go, okay, then it's mate 7. Okay. But yeah, so he resigned after this, which is a fair move, honestly. It's completely understandable. There's no way that he's going to be able to come back after this. We have an equal number of pawns on the king side and on the queen side. And after the trades and everything is done, I think this would be better. And then he's going to have to go over here and play defense. And this rook is just going to stay on this file the entire time. We don't want to move this rook because it's pinning the knight to the rook. And he'll be forced to play defense. And eventually, he'll just run out of moves. And then this wild haymaker will move, and we'll just trade. And maybe even play here. Nope, that's the loss of a piece. Play here and just start attacking, doing something. I would like to say that I would play b1 here. Honestly, I would just play g5 and just ignore it, which is actually one of the best moves. Perfect. Rook takes or bishop takes? Rook takes. And then, yeah. So, this king cannot move anywhere. Well, it can move somewhere, but it gets checkmated if it does. And the best move is to deflect the rook away from h8. Buy yourself time. But it's very close to being over, so... Yeah, that is the game. It's a very, very short one. Went in deep analysis. This is a very positional game with lots of threats. All of this because of a potential f3 move. Now, I will reiterate, the only reason why I survived this game is because the opponent did not punish this f3 move. When you're in positions like this, you need to study and look at your opponent's side. Even flip the board sometimes and say, you know what? I'm going to flip the board. I'm going to see what they're looking at. And that's what I did when I reached here. I flipped the board and I said, okay. So for my opponent's side, what I would do? Frankly, I would play here. I would play here after the rook went here. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go here. The developing move protects. He's not going to have enough time. Yeah, so while you're playing the games, just focus on what exactly is your opponent thinking. What would I play here? And what you would play, try to... Basically, in chess, you're proving yourself wrong. Saying, okay, I have an attack here. How do I prove myself wrong? Is there anything about this that's flawed? So, that is all I have right now. I will upload many, many more later on for you to enjoy. And this is just how to punish weaknesses. His weaknesses is that he did not develop fast enough. This had way too much tunnel vision. Way too much tunnel vision on the queen side, or the king side, apologies. And there wasn't enough development. That's why development is so important. If you look at it, both of us have at least somewhat of a presence in the center. But it ultimately came down to two things. Not really respecting my threats, and just poor development, and not enough threats. So, yeah, that's all I have for you. Hope you have a good day.